Today, we're diving into a really radical proposal from our sources. What if we could just reboot society itself? We're going to explore this wild idea of a planetary operating system, but one that's built from the ground up on a seriously ethical foundation.
Okay, so let's jump right in with a question that really gets to the core of this whole thing. The sources aren't asking if poverty is about a lack of resources or willpower. Nope. They frame it as a flaw in our systems, a design problem.
And this image, well, it just perfectly captures that design problem. You see, in the world we live in now, you've got capital chasing growth over here, real estate looking for stability over there, and technology trying to disrupt everything. They're all powerful, but they're stuck in their own lanes. This creates what the sources call a revolving door of inefficiency, where we end up just managing sickness instead of actually creating wellness.
So, to fix this broken design, the proposal isn't some patch or a quick fix. We're talking about a complete reboot, a brand new social and economic operating system designed to weave all these forces together right from the very start.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to get our heads around the big picture of this new OS. Then we'll dive into its economic engine, something called the consumer-to-asset flywheel. After that, we'll meet the AI brain behind it all, GENII. And finally, we'll get to its absolute core, the unchangeable moral code they call the ethical BIOS.
All right, let's start with the mission. This isn't just about shuffling resources around a little better. It's about fundamentally re-architecting our world to create abundance by design, not just by luck or chance.
And we're circling back to this because it's that important. The whole philosophy here is that the world actually has enough stuff for everyone. The problem is the system, the operating system that decides who gets what. The argument is, if you get the design right, you can pretty much solve for scarcity itself.
So you might be wondering, how does this actually work in the real world? Well, it all kicks off with its economic engine, a flywheel that starts with something incredibly simple, a food bar.
Now this is where things get really interesting. In our current world, when you buy something, that value, well, it pretty much flows up and away from you. This consumer-to-asset model flips that whole idea on its head. Your everyday spending is actually designed to build permanent wealth that you, the consumer, get to own a piece of.
Okay, let's walk through this. Step 1. Someone uses or trades a miracle bar, which is basically a unit of value, like one meal. That creates revenue. Step 2. The system automatically, without anyone thinking about it, siphons off 20% of that revenue into a wealth fund. Step 3. That fund goes out and buys real, tangible assets. We're talking irreplaceable stuff, like farmland and forests. And here's the kicker, step 4. The people who are part of this system become the actual deeded owners of those assets. Your consumption literally buys you a piece of the planet.
And this creates this incredibly powerful, self-reinforcing loop. You see, more consumption leads to buying more assets, which then generates more value and returns, which in turn just speeds up the whole cycle. It's like a financial organism designed for unstoppable growth and shared wealth.
But as you can imagine, trying to manage a global flywheel like this requires some serious brain power. And that's where the next layer comes in, an AI called Gemini, which stands for Generative Intentional Intelligence.
You know, GENII brings a whole new economic logic to the table. The old way, scale economics, is basically just make more stuff and hope the supply chain holds up. But the new way is coordination economics. GENII is so smart, it can pre-allocate demand and pool the logistics for things like food and medicine, turning what used to be a huge cost into a shared, super-efficient infrastructure.
And its governance model is just as brilliant. It keeps global intelligence and local authority separate. So GENII handles the big picture strategy, optimizing the whole network, but the actual people on the ground, the local community, they're the ones empowered with the authority to act. This way, you avoid that classic problem of a single point of failure, and you build a much more resilient system.
So, and this is so crucial, Gemini isn't just some cold, heartless calculator. The sources describe it as a master gardener, carefully tending to this global system, making sure it grows in a way that's not just efficient, but also genuinely good for everyone involved.
Which brings us to the deepest and honestly the most important layer of all. How do you make sure an AI this powerful always acts for the good of humanity? Well, you build it on an unchangeable, unbreakable ethical foundation.
The entire ecosystem is governed by one core principle: do no harm. And this isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a hardwired guardrail. It's built in to ensure what the source calls guilt-free progress.
This whole philosophy is enforced by a simple 3-step protocol. First, do no harm. It's the absolute gatekeeper. If an action might cause harm, it's a no-go. Second, every action has to actively do good by adding real value. And third, if there's any gray area at all, the AI has to ask if unsure and kick the decision back to a human.
And then the source material just drops this bombshell of a statement. Moses is the ethics, the BIOS. It's a powerful metaphor that completely reframes how you think about this system.
So what on earth does that mean? Well, think about your computer. The BIOS is the first thing that runs when you turn it on, right? It runs before Windows or Mac OS even starts to load. In the same way, this ethical layer is the fundamental bootloader for the entire system. These ethics, justice, compassion, dignity, all drawn from Torah principles, they're not an app you can just turn off. They are the absolute prerequisite for the AI to even function.
And this table just lays out the whole system stack perfectly. You see, at the very bottom you have the BIOS, those Torah ethics we were just talking about. On top of that, you've got the OS, the new coordination paradigm. Then comes the application layer. That's GENI, the predictive AI. And finally, you've got the hardware, the real-world physical hubs and assets. Every single layer is built on the one below it, starting with that unbreakable ethical foundation.
Look, the vision here is just immense. It's a theory for totally redesigning our world that is, like the source says, incredibly elegant in how it's put together. And if it actually works, the proof, a world of designed abundance, well, that would be nothing short of breathtaking.
So we end up right back where we started, but with an even bigger question. It's not just about whether poverty is a design problem anymore. It's about whether an operating system, one that's built on an ancient ethical code and powered by bleeding-edge technology, could actually be the solution. Could we really, truly redesign our world? That's the question this incredible blueprint leaves us with.